truth about Wolverine is much older than you think. His look, his rage, and his amazing powers aren't just made up by a comic book company. They're echoes of old myths and rituals that have been telling human stories for thousands of years. If we look closely, we'll see that the idea of a half-human warrior who seems more animal than person shows up in almost every culture. And it always tells the same basic stories: changing, being tough, getting super mad, and being really connected to wild nature. Let's start in the north. The Vikings had berserkers, warriors who fought in a trance, wore bear or wolf skins, and seemed to get superhuman fighting strength from it. They'd go into what was called berserker mode, lose their fear of pain, and be driven by a wild, animal-like fury. More specifically, besides the well-known berserkers, the Norsemen also had the Ulfhednar, or wolfhood wearers. These were men who purposely saw themselves as wolves, took on their traits, and acted like a wolf pack in battle, fast, tough, and merciless. These old stories aren't comic books, but the pictures they paint are strangely familiar. Fur over the shoulders, animal aggression, not feeling pain, and fighting power that makes enemies look like extras. These are exactly the things Marvel put into Wolverine's story. Beyond the Norsemen, Europe has countless tales of people who turn into wolves, or whose blood and teeth give them superhuman strength in a fight. The lycanthropy in Greek and medieval stories is part of the same family of ideas. From the Greek king Lycaon, who turned into a wolf, to medieval court records about supposed werewolves, and even folk tales that use the pack as a symbol for both social bonds and a desire to kill. All of this adds to the ancient character type that Wolverine draws from. But it's not just in Europe. In many Native American cultures, wolf figures appear as hunters, teachers, or ritual helpers. In some Asian traditions, wolves are seen as mountain messengers or guardian spirits, and in early Mesopotamian stories, there are ideas of beings that are neither fully god nor fully human. This worldwide spread shows something important. The idea of a human plus an animal equals increased power isn't just a coincidence. It's how humans answer big questions. Like, how do I survive when society breaks down? How do I deal with anger? And what happens to who I am when pain and loss take over? Wolverine is a very modern example of these answers. His healing is the mythical way of saying, we want to be invincible. His animal rage is a scary, quick version of ancient states of being possessed or in a trance, and his always coming back to fight is like mythical warriors always reappearing. The self-healing, what comics call the healing factor, has similar ideas in myths about coming back to life and unbreakable warriors. From heroes who recover from bad injuries to legendary figures who are renewed again and again through rituals. In many cultures, there are rituals meant to make a warrior symbolically unbreakable. Anointing with oils, magical symbols, shields made of special animal skins or amulets. And the result is the same psychological promise that Logan gets: trading mortality for extraordinary power. Wolverine's claws are another example of this mix of human and animal. Weapons in myths are rarely just tools. They're marks of identity, weapons of destiny that give the wielder a role, just like spears, swords, or sacred clubs have legendary names. The 3 claws on each hand are modern talons, but they do the same job as mythical swords. They show who you are, and they're the physical sign of the inner beast that both protects and destroys. It's no accident that Marvel uses this ancient meaning for a signature weapon. It's a clever way of turning a tribal symbol into the language of global pop culture. Wolverine wears his beast openly. He doesn't hide it. And that's what makes his character so easy to understand right away. Another theme is the loneliness of the immortal fighter. In old stories, those who escape death often pay with being alone and sad. They watch generations come and go, and their connections become fleeting moments. The same goes for Logan. His long life makes him a wanderer through different times, a witness who constantly mourns losses. And this is just like myths of the immortal hero who isn't fully tied to the world. A beautiful but painful image. The idea of the Sufi inner animal or the psychological shadow also comes up here. Wolverine isn't just an outside beast, he's the embodiment of hidden anger, reactions based on trauma, and a restless identity that would be called possession, or a berserker rage in myths. Marvel has put this inner struggle into modern language. Instead of blaming demons or gods, the comic world explains these powers with genetics, experiments, and military research. A scientific explanation that dresses up ancient fears in modern images. Wolverine's origins, soldier, experiment, survivor, remind us of the initiation journeys of old warrior cultures, where a person's identity was reshaped through pain, challenges, and a new role in the community. Weapon X, amnesia, flashbacks to Logan's past. These are all story elements that give the myth the necessary cracks so the character isn't one-dimensional. Instead, they create the feeling of an ancient archetype falling through the broken pieces of modern history and being reshaped. Wolverine's animal senses, his sense of smell, his hearing, his spooky intuition in close combat, mirror old stories about wolf-like creatures who smell the trail, sniff out unseen enemies, and hunt in the dark with amazing perception. These senses in myths often stand for a different kind of knowledge. Someone who feels like an animal sees the world differently and pushes the limits of human logic. Wolverine works right on that edge, and he makes that feeling real for the reader. An important, often overlooked theme is loyalty. In myths, wolves are symbols of both brutal wildness and pack loyalty. And Wolverine carries both sides within him, blindly defending friends and mercilessly wiping out a threat. This tension explains part of his appeal. Viewers love the character because he holds together the contradictions many people feel inside themselves. Aggression and caring, revenge and protection, wildness and responsibility. Wolverine as a rebirth of old stories also works because modern tales have added psychological depth to old themes. Trauma is no longer seen as a curse, but as a shaping process. And changing myths about gods into genetic explanations lets us deal with ancient ideas in a believable way. The popularity of such characters shows how timeless these questions are. How much animal is in a human? How much human is left when revenge takes over? And how do you live with powers that set you apart from others? Wolverine doesn't give clear answers to these questions. He stays complicated, and that very blurriness makes him the perfect modern mythical figure. He's a place for old longings and modern doubts to meet at the same time. So, when we say Wolverine is the berserker of our time, we mean more than just a stylish comparison. We mean he's a living relic, rewritten for an age that turns myths into pop culture and rethinks old fears. Marvel put the pieces together. Old rituals, animal metaphors, the idea of an immortal fighting machine, the traumatic past of a warrior. And from that, they built a character that feels both ancient and totally current. And because myths live on, Wolverine's meaning changes with each new generation. Sometimes he's the anti-hero who keeps the dark side in check. Sometimes he's the symbol of the damaged veteran. Sometimes he's the embodiment of raw, untamed nature in an increasingly technological world. In short, Wolverine isn't just an X-Man, he's a place where thousands of years of stories meet modern questions about violence, healing, identity, and community. And that's precisely why he remains so fascinating. If you want to keep exploring the secret origins of superheroes, then subscribe, comment, and share. Because the mythology of heroes isn't a finished product. It changes as we keep reading and reimagining it.